All right, well, we are good to go. So thank you so much again, Vicki and Michelle, for being here with us tonight. And we will turn it over to Vicki to start us off. Vicki, please take us away.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Olivia. It's so nice to be with all of you tonight. We're going to start with the salad that I'm going to be making, and I'm calling it a simple salad with a creamy beet ranch dressing. And the beet is really one of those kind of secret ingredients that just happens to turn the whole dressing wonderfully pink. So it seems very fitting for Valentine's Day, but actually it doesn't add a tremendous amount of flavor in this particular case. So it's really lovely way to introduce people who aren't sure if they like beets to the wonders of eating beets in terms of the nutrition. So I'm going to start with a very simple salad. It could be as simple as just some chopped greens. And literally this is just a box of pre-washed romaine. I just kind of sliced it because I just like that kind of bite-sized mouthfeel. So I have added that to a large bowl, and I'm going to add some baby spinach as well, some organic spinach, which I just roughly chopped. Again, I just like it just a slightly smaller bite than the larger leaf that comes in the container. And I just love a mix of colors. So again, it's really simple, but I just happen to have half of a head of radicchio. Sometimes if I don't have radicchio, which is a red kind of lettuce, and a little bit bitter, but really delicious. I love that color that it adds to this bowl. But if I didn't have this, and I often don't, I would add maybe just a few shreds of a red cabbage, again, just for a little bit of color. And then I just am adding to this some chopped carrots and English cucumber. So you're seeing all of this added to a salad bowl. And then we're just going to mix this, and this is our whole salad. So nice and simple. You could add a little bit of nuts if you wanted to the top, or tomatoes, or whatever you like. And of course, just whatever's in season. Any kind of green will do, but we've got just a nice big base here for our salad dressing, and that comes next. So to a blender, I'm going to add the ingredients. Everything's going to mix right all in this one container for the dressing. So I'm going to start with half of a cup of raw cashews. So we'll put that in, half of a cup of water. Then one roasted beet. This is just about an ounce of a roasted beet. I roasted this yesterday at 350 for about an hour. And then I just took off the peel. The skin of the beet just comes off really easily with your fingers once it's cool enough to touch. If you don't want to do this yourself, you could just buy the beets already roasted. So that would work as well. But I find that when I do it myself, it's slightly brighter color, and I just kind of like that, but it's really not necessary. So we've got a beet, our water, our cashews, and now just a little bit of lemon juice, 2 tablespoons, 2 teaspoons of a brown mustard that you like. Sometimes I just eyeball this because I like a little extra mustard. We're just putting in that mustard, and then some seasoning. So I've got a dash of basically about a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. If you don't like a little bit of bite, with a little heat, then you could leave that out or cut that back. So 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne, onion powder, garlic powder, actually just a dash of that, more like 1/8 of a teaspoon, and a 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. So I mixed all of those little seasonings together in a dish. And that is it. We're going to blend this. So now we'll just turn this small amount, and you could easily double or triple this if you wanted to have more. I'm just making enough for kind of one batch of today. So we're going to turn this on. And we're done. But look how bright this is. This is such a wonderful color. I just adore this. And even people who don't like beets, and I've got these people that I'm describing right now in my family, they like this dressing. So we've got a birthday coming up in a month, celebrating 3 birthdays in our family, all in March. And I have already been asked to create this dressing for this. So this is how easy it is. We're just going to serve this salad with just a little drizzle of this lovely pink dressing right on top. The rest can be stored in a jar, whatever amount you're not serving today. And we've got this beautiful salad with this pink dressing that's just perfect for a Valentine's Day dinner. And that's that. Michelle?
That looks beautiful, Vicki. Well, hello, everybody. Tonight, the first thing I'm making tonight is a cauliflower steak. I think it's kind of a nice thing to have for Valentine's Day. It's pretty simple. You're starting out with a head of cauliflower. Now, it's important that you don't cut or core the stem. I mean, you don't want to core it because then it won't hold up. So you're going to cut it through the middle. My Apple pen just stuck. You put it on the stem side, and then you're going to cut about 1.5 inch steaks. And don't worry, because you only really get about 2 per cauliflower head, but you can use the rest. We've got that big game coming up this weekend, so you can make cauliflower wings or roast them, whatever you'd like. Now, I already cut up, so I thought it'd be kind of fun for Valentine's Day to try it with a purple cauliflower. I mean, I do try to get the different color things when possible. It looks kind of cool because of the other antioxidants, but the white cauliflower still has a lot of value to it also. So I'm just going to put this aside. I'll put that in just a moment. So into the baking dish, I'm just putting 2.5 cups of a vegetable stock. The oven's preheating at 350 degrees. Putting 1/2 cup of dry white wine. I get this at Trader Joe's. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. It's Grifone, but it's vegan. A lot of wines, seems like they should be vegan, but they're not. They might be clarified with egg whites or run through a fish bladder. And I don't know who thought that was a good idea, but they can use those too. So unless it says vegan, it might not be. I've got some rough chopped, it says smashed garlic, which is kind of a good way to get rid of some tension. Got 2 bay leaves and the juice of a lemon, which is usually 2 to 3 tablespoons, depending on your source, how juicy it is. It helps to roll it on the counter a little bit first to help loosen up some of those juices. And then I'm putting this in. And I'm covering it with foil. Cover it tightly with foil. And carefully put that into the oven. Now, while that's going, we're going to make the pistou, which is sort of like a pesto, but this is kind of deconstructed. It doesn't have, it's not blended. So I'm taking 2 oranges, which I'm, without doing it right now, supreme. So you're gonna, I'll just start it where you cut off the ends. You can see me doing this. And then you take your knife and you're gonna peel it. So you're gonna not waste a lot of the orange. This has got a very thick rind. You're going to go around like that and then cut the segments out. So that's what I have here. So you can see what it looks like. You're not getting the pith. Okay. And then I'm adding some lemon juice, some green olives, minced garlic. Get something to some golden raisins. So this has got a lot of, you know, sweet, salty, whole food fats, all sorts of things. Now both recipes, as you'll see on their calls for olive oil, I try not to use, I mean, I just don't use it very much. I used to, in fact, that was my hardest thing to give up when I went plant-based. I just thought it's vegan, it's a plant. I had a hard time with it. So, but once I gave it up, I realized that when I have it, if it was out in a restaurant or something, my lips would feel greasy. So I'm fine without using it. If you'd like to use it, go ahead. Now, as far as using, okay, so that's just what that looks like. Nice little pistou. And then I already cooked some. So what you do when you take it out, you're going to bake it for about 30 to 40, 35, 40 minutes, 45. You're going to just check on it once in a while. Make sure you can put a knife through it. Without, you don't want it to get too mushy, but you want to be able to take a knife out. And I said they're inch to an inch and a half thick. If you do less than an inch, it's probably going to burn. Inch and a half, it's not going to cook that well. After it comes out, you're going to blot them with a towel because you want to get all the moisture off. And then heat up a pan. You can use, if you like using cast iron, you could do that. I use the Scan pan. And just to save time, I did these ahead, and you can see they look like. I just used a little spritz after watching the Sure's Eyes. I just used a little spritz of the avocado oil that they sell at Trader Joe's, just so it wouldn't stick to the pan. There's hardly any oil comes out. So then, this looked kind of cool for, it gets, because when you soak it, or when it's in the oven, it doesn't change the color all the way through, but you can see it's nice and pink. And I'm gonna put this one on here. And then you just put the pistou on top. Drizzle some around the plate. And there it is. Back to you, Vicki.
That really looks delicious, Michelle. Really does. So now my next thing I'm going to make is mac and cheese. I call it mac and cheese perfection because to me it's just really delicious, and this sauce is really nice to use in a lot of different ways. But today we're going to use it in the very traditional mac and cheese kind of way. And I think that's kind of comfort food and just nice to serve your family on a winter night, but especially kind of nice on Valentine's Day when it's just kind of a cozy idea, sort of comfort food meal. So we're going to start by preparing your pasta. In fact, that can happen while you're making the sauce. And I actually just prepared that. So I've got some whole wheat pasta that's warm that I just made just a few moments ago. You could use any kind of pasta you like. You could use zoodles if you'd prefer to not use any pasta. You could use something made with, lentil or quinoa kind of pasta if you're avoiding gluten. So there, you can basically use any kind of base that you like. And then we're going to start with our sauce. So first, what we do is saute an onion. I actually sauteed this in water, and I got it nice and golden, even though there's no oil added, but you could certainly saute in oil if you prefer. And so I've just got this nice onion here, nice sweet onion that I'm going to put into the blender, and we're going to start there. So we've got onion, which will become, it smells really great already, just the onion kind of grilled. And this is kind of a template, this recipe, because you can actually add anything you like. I've made this by starting with an onion. I've added garlic when I have that, easy to add in. I've also added on occasion just some other vegetables that I have on hand, like some butternut squash. But today we'll keep it kind of simple, just the basic recipe. But if you happen to have any leftover cooked vegetables, you can kind of add them in any way you wish. So we'll start with this onion, and to that we're going to add 1 cup of raw cashews. So again, these are the raw, not roasted cashews. And then 1 cup of a non-dairy, plain, unsweetened milk. I'm using soy milk. I've used almond milk. You can use any kind you like. Then 1/2 cup of water. And I've even used we're ending up with about 1.5 cups of liquid. So I've even kind of split it up where it's more of, half and half, and that works well too. Kind of just depends. A little bit more of the milk makes it just slightly thicker and creamier. And then we're going to add 6 ounces, which is half of a 12-ounce jar. A lot of times it'll come as a 12-ounce jar, sometimes 16-ounce, but about half of a jar of roasted red peppers. And I try to buy the ones that don't have any sugar or any oil in them, but you can use any kind you like. And when I have the time, I sometimes just roast 1 pepper ahead of time, a bell pepper, for about 30 minutes at about 350 or until it starts to get a little bit toasty looking. But the jar I usually keep in the pantry just to have handy for things like this. Then we're adding 1/4 cup of nutritional yeast. Some people tell me they don't really like nutritional yeast, so you can leave it out, or you could use less. Some people love it and they want to add more, so you can do that too. Then I've got 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, and then 2 tablespoons of broth or water. Today I'm just using water, but you can use vegetable broth. And then a little bit of mustard, and just a yellow mustard, simple yellow mustard, 2 teaspoons. And I'm just going to eyeball this with a couple of squirts. I don't mind if I have a little extra. I love that flavor. And then I'm adding my seasoning. And again, I put it all into a jar already. So I've got here some cayenne pepper, salt, and just a dash of pepper, although I didn't have that in the recipe. That's optional. You could add a little pepper if you wanted to. And that's everything. So now we're going to create our sauce. And our sauce is done. And now we get to assemble. So you'll notice on the recipe, I say first thing to preheat an oven to 400. It's actually optional. So you can either do this by baking it in the oven or just serving it as kind of a stovetop preparation. So I've got my pasta here, and I'll describe how to do it either way. So we've got our pasta that's cooked. I'm going to put this pasta, you could put all of it or just a portion of it right into a baking dish, and then we can top it with the sauce and bake it at 400 degrees for roughly 25 minutes or so, or until this top starts to get a little bit golden. Or you can just take this hot pasta, which is what we usually do. I used to bake it all the time when I made it. Now I bake it only part of the time. A lot of times we just serve it straight like this. So now I've got this delicious sauce, and we just pour this golden, creamy sauce made with all these flavors and vegetables right on top, and just serve it just like this over the hot pasta. Or you could warm it a little bit longer if you wanted to. You could take this sauce and put it into a little saucepan and heat it, and then pour that over your hot pasta. But that's how easy this is. And we've got this wonderful cheesy pasta. And if you want to, you could add, as I mentioned, you could add vegetables to the sauce. You could actually add, this sauce is so good, I literally could eat with this with a spoon. It's so delicious. So if you wanted to, you could just kind of add some cooked vegetables to this. You could add some extra peppers and onions, or some broccoli or spinach, or any kind of vegetable you like. And so then we're ready to plate this, basically. Either we could bake it at 400 just to get a little more steamy and a little crunchy on top, or just go for it like this. With a big bowl of pasta. And there we are. Back to you, Michelle.
All right. So one thing I wanted to say, I didn't mention with the cauliflower steaks, they take about 4 to 6 minutes on each side. You want to get it a little bit golden brown. If you're not using oil, it's not going to get as golden. But you don't want to fiddle with them. You want to leave them. If you move them a lot, they are more likely to break apart. So just wanted to say that, about 4 to 6 minutes on each side, carefully turn them over. So next I'm going to make a chocolate mousse. I have been making this for a very long time. I started this over 20 years ago, so it was last millennium. It was before I was plant-based, vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian, any of that. I did it because my mom graced me with her genetically high cholesterol, and I have some allergies. So I started making it. When I first made it, I was making it with chocolate chips, silken tofu, and brown rice syrup. And it's evolved as I learned more and as my taste adjusted. So I want to tell you a little bit about tofu. First of all, back when I started making this, it was, most people didn't have good impressions of tofu. In fact, in 1986, it was the most hated food. But I made this for and I was asking my neighbor if she wanted to try it. And she said yes. And then she held the spoon up. She said, "What's in it?" I said, "Tofu." And she went back like this. And she didn't want to eat it because she thought that sounded gross, but then she had already committed to trying it, and then she really liked it. So it is, the tofu is going to absorb the flavors of what else you put in. But I wanted to go over these different kinds of tofu. There's so many different, and it's important which one you use. If you use what you usually see in the store, that's a block tofu in the refrigerator section, and it is made with curdled soy milk. So it's actually got curds and whey, and it comes in a lot of different kinds, of soft, firm, extra firm. What we want for this is the silken tofu, which still uses the soy milk, but it's not curdled. So it's got a nice silky surface. And then it still has different textures. So it's important, if you're getting extra firm, you're careful not to get the block kind of extra firm. Now you can get them, with the pandemic, there's been a big push for, we find the tofu has been out of stock a lot more. So these are the aseptic containers, and they're usually not anywhere near the refrigerator section. These are made, they're like 12.3 ounces per package. They have something in them. They've got a different preservative or something. It's not my favorite, but I'll use it. I just pick up on the taste easier. This one is the one I prefer, but you can't always get this. So I wanted to give a recipe for that. This is the silken tofu. And on the side here, I've been very, very interested in bone health especially after I broke my wrist this fall. And what happens, our bone density peaks at age 29. That's young. And, it goes downhill from that peak. So just making sure, where you can, if you're going to get the calcium, I want to get calcium where I can. We don't absorb a lot of it at a time. So I like to if I'm going to get tofu, I want to be sure there's calcium in it. I buy soy milk or any kind of plant milk that has calcium added, because I like to get it like that. But this silken kind, this one has 70 milligrams of grams of calcium. This one the soft one has 32, and this one has 41. So that's a big difference. And I kind of like to get my calcium where I can. So that's what I pick. And because I'm using, this one is a full pound. The other ones are 12.3 ounces. What I'm doing is just adding a little, like a quarter more than I would normally with the other package. And another thing, like I said, I started making this before, and I was using chocolate chips and brown rice syrup. Brown rice syrup has a very high glycemic index. So I rarely use that, but I do make a mean Tootsie Roll, and it kind of needs the brown rice syrup. So you can use dates. That's what I like to do. I like to use dates. You can use date syrup, date paste, maple syrup, agave, whatever you like. This is, people at VegMichigan are at all different stages. Some are just getting curious about vegetarian food or vegan food, and others are all the way to whole food, plant-based, no oil. So this is the version I'm making right now is a whole food, plant-based version, but do whatever way that you like. I mean, you can use chocolate chips with some cacao powder. You can blend it. You can use chopped up chocolate bar, whatever you like. So I've got the tofu in there. I soak these dates. I just prefer using the dates. I think it gives some body to the mousse. So I'm going to put this on first. Mix a racket. Be sure when you're using dates, I always say to, give them a rinse, dry them off, look inside to make sure they don't have any of the little seeds or the mold. You don't want to bite into those, and you want to make sure the pit and the stem is out. Even if you buy the kind that are pitted, it can have the stem, and once in a while a rogue pit gets in there. And it would help to have it plugged in. Now I'm going to add a little over half a teaspoon of vanilla, because I usually use a half teaspoon for the smaller, the box kind. And my tastes have changed a lot because I used to have the chocolate chips and the brown rice syrup, so it was pretty sweet. So what I want y'all to do is, blend it, taste it. If it needs more chocolate, you can put chips or more cacao. If it needs sweetener, you can add whatever sweetener you were using, but just be sure you give it a taste. Put the cacao in and scrape it down. I really do like these spatulas for my Vitamix now. I've got a couple of them. They're Tovolo. They're really nice for getting into the Vitamix. Hate to keep starting and stopping, but I like to scrape down the sides. Get that all mixed in. I think the chocolate chip version tends to be the thicker kind. So if you want it to be a thicker consistency, you might want to go with the extra firm silken tofu and the chips. And that's that. So once you decide what version you want, it's very simple to make. And for something fancier, I will use this kind of glass and set them in and maybe put some fresh berries on top, strawberries or raspberries, very high in phytonutrients. And this will, like I said, put in the refrigerator for a while so it sets up more, but I think it's delicious. I mean, everyone, I've made it for omnis, and vegans, plant-based have all enjoyed it. So I hope you do too. Back to you, Vicki.
Okay, thank you. So I am going to now make chocolate covered strawberries. And what's fun about this is it's extremely easy. And you can actually use, I'm using strawberries tonight. You could use raspberries, blueberries, blackberries, grapes. I mean, you can really dip anything. And this is almost not a recipe. It's so simple, but it's so good, it's hard to beat. So perfect for Valentine's Day. What we want to do, I'm saying on my recipe to use about 1 quart of strawberries, which is what I've got here. And what I did was rinse them and dry them very carefully and gently with a towel, a cotton towel. And because if they're wet, the chocolate won't really adhere. But, you know, I say 1 quart, you don't have to do 1 quart. You could do a pint. You could do just a few berries, 3 berries, just whatever it is that you are ready to have and enjoy or share. So then we're going to melt some chocolate, and there's so many choices. I'm of course making sure that it's a vegan chocolate. And one of my favorite ways to do that is just use the chocolate chips from Trader Joe's that are semi-sweet. And another way is the ones I get from Kroger, which is called, they're made by Enjoy Life. And then I've also got Ghirardelli has something new that I happen to find. They used to make a vegan chocolate chip, then they stopped making it. And I just happened to find that they made something called 100% cacao unsweetened. So this isn't your regular chocolate chip. This is an unsweetened version. And then Trader Joe's does the same thing, and they call it organic, completely cacao chips, unsweetened chocolate. And this too is a chocolate chip with no sugar. So these are the things you can find available now with or without sugar. And as Michelle mentioned, sometimes if you're trying to avoid sugar, you may want to cut back or just use a tiny drizzle of this. What I decided to do, because sugar is kind of a trigger for me, when I eat a little sugar, I usually want a little more. And I try to avoid chocolate bars or chocolate chips most of the time now. I used to use it. I used to bake with it a lot. And one of my favorites, which really when you feel like indulging, is a really high quality chocolate like a Sharpenberger, using about 5 ounces of this to a quart. But again, you can kind of mix and match. So what I decided to do tonight, just to kind of experiment, was to use, I had about 2 ounces left of these chips, and I took about a handful of the unsweetened ones and added them to the sweetened ones, just to kind of tone down how overly wonderful they might be without that. So I am boiling this over a hot pan of water. So you can just take this is a double boiler, so the top fits in the bottom. But if you don't have that, which I don't even know if most people probably don't these days, this is something old I got the idea from my mom. My mom always had one. But you can just take a glass bowl that's heat ready, and put that over boiling water and just melt in there. That works too, or you can even microwave it. But we've got some melted chocolate, this mixture of chips that I used. And this is how simple it is. Literally, we are just literally taking these beautiful strawberries and dipping them in the chocolate, kind of giving it a little twirl, maybe shaking off the extra, or you don't have to, and just placing it on parchment paper or a silicone baking mat and going to the next one. And what's fun about this is you can do as little or as much chocolate as you like. So you can definitely just dip the very tips, or you can go almost to the very top. And once you do this, and you've got these beautiful strawberries that are ready to go, you can even add something to that. So you could sprinkle some, little confetti sprinkles on top, or some coconut, or some ground peanuts, or some, anything that you like. So it's fun that you can kind of mix and match how you decorate these as well. But I'm just going kind of purist here, just dipping strawberries. Could stick these on a little stick as well, make a little bouquet out of these to serve to somebody special. And then we want these to just basically set up and harden. So we've got enough here, enough chocolate definitely for this, for all of these, I would say, I'm guessing. But if you wanted to use less, instead of dipping, you could actually pipe these, put it into like a bag, cut a little, like a zip bag, and cut a little corner off, and just drizzle atop if you wanted to not have as much of the chocolate per strawberry. So it's really one of those things you can kind of customize to exactly what you want. But this is basically what we're doing, is just kind of dipping, twirling, and placing on here. And then what we want to do, I'll just put that back on the hot water, is continue doing that very thing. And then we've got this beautiful strawberries that are dipped in chocolate ready to enjoy. And these particular ones, as I mentioned, are kind of half regular chocolate chips and half unsweetened, but you can do mix and match any way you like. And that's that. Michelle?
Those look yummy. We're both, Vicki and I are both doing things that require melted chocolate. And we each have our way of dealing with chocolate being too tempting. So I'm making a chocolate bark. I'm just finishing melting my chocolate. I have a pan, like Vicki got hers from her mom. This is a pan that fits inside another pan. I put it over a couple inches of water. You don't want the water to touch the bottom of the pan, and you don't want to move the pan. You don't want to risk getting any water into the pot. So you always, like Vicki was talking about a bowl, you could use something like this and set it into the pot. You want to make sure the water can't come up. If it gets into the chocolate, it can seize up and it'll get all grainy and it's kind of past the point of no return very quickly. So we don't want to do that. So I did. The thing with bark, because see, like I try to avoid straight chocolate because I don't feel good after I've had the sugar. I'm very sensitive to those changes in my blood sugar. So I like to put in fruits and nuts and things like that that's going to slow down that glycemic response. So what I have for this is dried cranberries, heart healthy pecans and pistachios. Pistachios nuts are good for you. I mean, you don't want to overdo it. I think Dr. Dean Ornish has a list of what a serving is of nuts, and 1 walnut counts as a serving for him, or 9 pistachios. So it doesn't take much to get the benefit from them, but they are good for us. So I'm going to just pour this out. I saw these little pans on a Food Network show, and I really like them for this kind of thing. I don't want the water to come out, so I'm going to be very careful. Just kind of scoop this onto the pan. But I'm using that combination. You can use whatever combination you like, any kind of nuts, seeds, if you want pretzels or, whatever, or maybe if you eat the kind of, you might want to put like candy canes or just all sorts of different things. Candied ginger is good in chocolate. So maybe some sea salt, whatever you like. I think, like, I'm not a super big fan of really bitter chocolate. This is about a 60% bar. So that's what I like. I'm using that, so I'm going to put, I've got about 6 ounces of chocolate here. I'm just spreading it out. You can also mix the nuts and seeds into the chocolate. You don't have to just put it on top. Makes it a little more depth. I'm just going to get a little bit more of this up. That's good. And pistachios, if you don't know, are a really good source of melatonin. 2 pistachios gives you enough. It's like a serving of melatonin. Cranberries do too, but not the dried fruit doesn't seem to have the pack the punch, but like raw cranberries, if you like that, you could use it and you get a lot of melatonin in this. It's kind of useful to know if you're trying hard to optimize your sleep, which is so important for our health. I'm just going to sprinkle these. I've got about 2 tablespoons of each. And like I said, I like a lot of the nuts on here, so it slows down that glycemic response. Just gave them a rough chop. And this is pretty loaded with stuff here. Big spoon. Kind of press that in. We'll set it in the refrigerator to cool. You can temper your chocolate if you do that, but you need a candy thermometer for it. So I find I just melt it on the stove. You can also melt it in your microwave. it can get a little bit easy to go overboard with that. So I do like the stove method, and there's the bark. Let's see that. And that is very simple. Like I said, you can tailor it however, whatever your preferences are. I do like it with candied ginger too, not with this combination, but candied ginger and nuts is also very good. Little, maybe you want to try a little hot pepper in there, or like I said, sea salt. And then once it hardens, you know, just break it up so that random pieces, you don't have to cut it.
All right.
I just see that you said it was silken tofu. Yeah, silken tofu comes in different, the soft and firm and extra firm. So I have these two in the aseptic containers. You can use any kind, whatever you have. I just prefer the refrigerated kind, of like the taste better. So I adjusted, and usually I would put in 3 tablespoons. Oh, I didn't even say what I was putting. Yeah, the tofu, and then I use 3 tablespoons of cacao, but when I use the bigger container, I use 4. I used half a teaspoon of, usually I use it of vanilla, and I do a little bit more when I'm using the bigger container. And I used like half a cup of dates as a rule that I soaked. But for this, because I was using a bigger package, I used like a very rounded packed half cup. So whatever, but you have to really adjust it to your taste buds, because that's what I'm used to. If you want it with the date paste or date syrup, there are so many different ways to make date paste. Some use a 1-to-1, the water and the dates. Other people, and they don't soak it. Other people are going to use less water. Soak it, but when you soak it for 4 hours, it's going to plump up, so you don't need to add as much water. I usually end up just soaking mine, and then they're so full of water after I've soaked them for a while that I don't blend them. I don't make a paste. Another little thing is the date lady, her date syrup. It's about a tablespoon of her syrup per medjool date. Those are bigger than Daglet Nor, so just another little guide for that.
Very nice. Yeah, there are so many different kinds of tofu that we can use. Actually, another question for the mousse, Michelle. Someone was wondering did you drain the water that was in the tofu, or did the kind you use come with water, or was that part of the recipe?
The thing, silken tofu doesn't have the water like the firm black tofu that has the curds in the way, that kind of thing. So those you need to drain when you're using them, but this one you don't. I just put it all in. It doesn't have that extra water.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, I've been, plant-based vegan for over 10 years now. I don't think I've ever made anything with silken tofu. I got to try something out.
It's good.
I also some chocolate mousse.
Yes, that's a good way to start. Take care of the chocolate craving too. But it also works, that silken tofu works good well in tofu scrambles too, because if people are missing the eggs, the egg white, it's got more of an egg white consistency. Okay. So some black salt gives it an eggier taste.
Yeah, absolutely. Very nice. That's a great tip. Mm-hmm. Also, with the chocolate bark, do you just let that harden at room temperature, or do you have to put it in the freezer?
Popping it in the refrigerator.
You're gonna pop it in the freezer? Okay. Yeah. Do you need to cover it or anything, or is it okay just like that? Awesome. All right. It looks, I believe we only have one other question. Vicki, someone was wondering how the dressing would taste if you didn't roast the beets. I don't know if you've ever tried that.
I haven't, but I do love raw beets. I haven't tried it, and you could definitely try it. It's a little milder taste, I find, when you're using raw beets compared to roasted. It's really kind of a different flavor. I absolutely have not tried it. That's an interesting question. I don't know how the texture would be. I mean, this gets really nice and creamy, might be a little different texture, but certainly if you don't want to roast it and you want it raw, that would be, I'm sure, delicious as well. Yeah, so here's my salad and the dressing with the pink dressing.
Yeah.
It looks so good. I love your theme of the pink dressing, and Michelle, the pink purple cauliflower.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of fun.
Absolutely.
The white one anyway. Okay.
It all looks delicious. Let me just scan the comments real quick. Someone asked where you buy candied ginger, but it looked like someone answered that. Yeah, Better Health store, I'm sure.
Trader Joe's
Trader Joe's.
has
Trader
some
Joe's, yeah.
kind of it. Yeah, Penzies, a lot of people have it. It comes in, like, they have chews, they have got different kind of crystallized ginger in the little already cut up into pieces. It's not too hard to find.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let me see. Oh, someone asked freezer or refrigerator to harden the bark. You said freezer, correct?
You can
Or
do either one.
either?
But yeah, usually if I want to have it faster, I'm going to put it in the freezer.
Sure.
cut the time to for it to harden.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, well, it's looking like that is all the questions. Lots of, very positive comments. As always, people are loving it.
Can you put the blog one in the chat, please? You put one of their blogs in the chat in the beginning. I just want to make sure I have it.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's Vicki's blog. She runs the blog Ann Arbor Vegan Kitchen. It has a lot of delicious recipes. I'm adding that again to the chat. Definitely check that out. And she's also coming out with a new cookbook. I'm not sure if she has an exact release date yet, but hopefully one of their upcoming cooking demos will be able to raffle off one of her cookbooks so we're definitely excited to do that as well. What are the names of some good vegan chocolate and where to buy it? Can you guys share your favorite vegan chocolates?
Well, I just wanted to give you a source of information. It's the Food Empowerment Project. They have lists of chocolate that are vegan and that are ethically sourced, so that it's not using slave labor, which unfortunately is part of other chocolates. So that's one thing, just to check your brands. I get some from Whole Foods. It's important to me to get fair trade when I can, so I do that a lot. And Vicki, you said Scharfen burger.
Yes, the sharpened burger semi-sweet is something that I use for kind of special occasions. It's a little more expensive than some of the other kinds of chocolate, but I have always in my pantry the Trader Joe's chocolate chips, which are vegan, and the Enjoy Life mini chips are nice as well. And these are made in Canada. These are non-GMO verified. I don't have my glasses on, but yeah. So these are two brands that I often will have handy.
The Trader Joe's doesn't say vegan on it. They don't do that with a lot of their products. I think it's because it may be made in a plant that processes other items, that like with dairy or other things. And then what did Vicki just say? Oh, the Enjoy Life. The one bag I looked at didn't have any vanilla in it. I'm not sure why, but a lot of the other chocolates do include vanilla. Vanilla in chocolate and desserts is kind of like salt is to cooking. It does enhance the flavor. So that'd just be another thing. If you use the Enjoy Life, you might need to put a little bit more of the vanilla extract into the mousse. Just a lot of variables, but if you just taste it after you blend it and adjust accordingly.
That's a really good tip about the vanilla, Michelle. That's good to know, definitely. And Vicki, where did you get the sharpened burger? Is that what it's called? Where can someone purchase?
Yeah, well, I've seen it at Whole Foods, but I got this at Plum Market actually. And I don't buy this often. It's a little bit more of an indulgence, but I always have a few kinds of chocolate on hand. And so I find that, depending on the need, a bigger chip, a smaller chip, these unsweetened chips that I mentioned as well, this completely unsweetened cacao chip. It's just nice to kind of have a variety so that when you're working toward, a variety of goals, and whether you're trying to avoid sugar or kind of keep it a little more pure, or add something that's a little more for a special occasion with a little extra sugar, you can kind of mix and match depending on. So I usually have a variety.
And I don't always, I have it certain times a year, but I really like my cacao powder. It adds that chocolatey flavor to a lot of things. So this works for me. I use it in like raw brownies, smoothies, the mousse. and I'm never going to be tempted to eat it out of the bag. So that way I have my chocolate fix when I want it, but it's not a temptation like having other chocolates around could be.
Right, and to build on what Michelle is saying, if you just have a little bit of cacao powder and a little bit of date syrup and just mix that together, you know, it won't be the same texture of this dipped strawberry, but it'll still be a delicious sauce that's very healthy and plant-based, you know, without maybe the temptation that for some people where sugar's the trigger, you could just use that as an easy, healthy dip as well.